The first swing up that we did was about inputting student record with 10 data fields using swing components. And every time the user submits the student record, it is saved into a CSV file. One student occupying one line, and each data field occupies one column in the CSV file. And we also could submit or save as many student records as the user wants. And each time we submit a student record, that is saved into the CSV file. Okay, like remember, the first one we input is the record of Juan Cruz. And when we view the CSV file, the record of Juan Cruz consisting of 10 fields occupies one line in the CSV. And when we enter the second record, which is for Maria Clara, when we submit it, it was also saved into the CSV file as the second line in the file. Okay, so every time the user submits a new student record, it is saved or written into the next line. So if the user has already saved or submitted 10 student records, then when you view the CSV file, there will be 10 student records in there, or 10 lines. This time, for the second swing up we're going to do now, we assume that there is already a CSV file with, say, 10 student records. And what our app will do is to read all those student records from the CSV file, load them into the RAM using a 2D array structure. We load all student records all at once into the RAM so that the app can easily navigate through all the records. This way, we can save running time fetching each student record from the RAM instead of fetching each record from the external CSV file. Also, our app will identify the student record with the highest grade and the lowest grade. Okay, so let's go now to the location of our CSV file with the file name student.csv and check what are the student records saved inside. So again, remember where our student.csv is located. It is in Drive D folder CPE121 Java. Okay, so let's try to open this and see what's inside. Okay, so this is now our opened student.csv file. So as I have said a while ago, there are 10 student records. This is the first, second, third, fourth, up to the 10th student record. And this column here is the ID, the name of the student, the course, the year level, the gender, this column is the score of the students. This column is the total points of the exam. And this one is the grade of the exam and the remarks of the exam grade. And the last column is the clearance. So true if the clearance is already submitted, false if not yet submitted. So since I have said a while ago that the second swing application will identify the highest and the lowest grade, so let's try to check now who among the 10 students is the lowest with the one with the lowest grade and the one with the highest grade. So the grade column is this one, which is this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or if this is index 0 in our array, this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Take note that in our 2D array, the column index for grade is 7. And as you can see here, the one with the lowest grade with a poor remark is the 5th record, which is the record of Sebastian Hastings. Okay, so he is the lowest, the fifth record. Okay, take note of that, because when we run our program later, we must see this one, the fifth record, as the lowest grade. And the highest is who? It's this one, right? The eighth student record with a grade of 98, excellent. This is 97, so this is the highest, 98. And it's the eighth record, and the name of the student is Chris Tomlin. Okay, so take note of that. The lowest grade is the fifth one, Sebastian Hastings, and the highest grade is the eighth record, Chris Tomlin. Okay, now assuming this is the content of our CSV file, let's now go to our code in Eclipse IDE. Now we don't have to do the whole thing from scratch, because we discussed that already in our first video, demo video, how to add components into our window or our frame. So take note that it's almost similar to the first Swing app. Okay, we have here the first panel, exactly the same as the previous one. The second panel, exactly the same as the previous one. But since this time, our app will read from the CSV, there will be no more input from the keyboard or from the user. So all of the text fields are for output or display. Okay, so from the CSV, all of those records will be displayed here, one record at a time, with all of the 10 fields displayed. Now, I simply remove the submit button and add this prev and next button, okay, for navigation. When you press prev button, you move to the previous student record. When you press the next button, you move to the next student record, okay? Remember, there are 10 student records. If you are currently on the first record, when you press Prev, nothing will happen because you are on the first student record. But when you press Next, what will be displayed in here are the data fields of the second student record. When you press Next again, you will see the data fields of the third student, and so on. And then you exit this, we simply end the application. Now, the icon and the title are the same, and I simply adjust the window, make it bigger, so that we could put here a label. Take note that this component is a label, and I give it a new name. I call it record label. Okay, so we display here what record are you currently now. So it would say 1 of 10, 2 of 10 if you are on the second record, 3 of 10 if you are on the third student record, 4 of 10 if you are on the fourth student record. Okay, and then when the record you are currently viewing is the lowest grade, or the record with having the lowest grade, then we have here a label which I call rank label. Okay, it will show here that the rank is lowest kung lowest siya. Rank is highest if the record is the one with the highest grade. And then I simply have here two labels. Okay, take note that although this is an image, it is actually a label component. Okay, because you could use a label component to display an image. Okay, like in this case, icons. So you could display in the icon property of label, you could choose an image. Okay, so in this case, this one, I choose this one, which is located at this directory. Okay, so instead of writing some text there for label, I displayed an image. Okay, so this will appear when you are currently viewing the record with the highest grade. And there is another label with a different image. Okay, the study hard label, which is which you could see here. This one. This will appear when you are currently on the record, or you're currently viewing the record with the lowest grades. So when you view the record with the highest grade, this one will appear, the medal. And when you view the record with the lowest grade, this image will appear instead. Okay, so let me just put that one back there. Okay. Now, another thing is that when you are on the first record, student record, this button must be disabled. You cannot press that, okay? Because you are on the first student record. And when you are in the last student record, the next button should also be disabled. Only the previous prev button is enabled, okay? So let me run this application. This is already complete and running. And after we run this, I will explain to you the code. Okay. Let's run it now. So we click this, run as Java application. Okay, so this is our running application now. Take note that we are currently viewing the first record, the one of Juan Cruz record, and it displays here on our top level 1 of 10. And these are all the details of Juan Cruz record. And take notice that the prev button is disabled because we are currently on the first record. There is no previous to the first record, but there is a next. And so this is enabled and we can click this. So when we click this, we move to the second record, 2 of 10, and that is for Maria Clara. Okay, all the details or all the data fields of Maria Clara, which is all the columns from the second line in our CSV file. Okay, and this time that we are now on the second record, the prev button is enabled because there is a previous record, which is the first one. So you could move back there. And again, this is disabled because you are currently at record number 1. Okay, so we click next. We are at second record. Click next. We are on the third. Next. We skip somehow the fourth. Okay, this is the fourth. Okay, and then the 5. Look at that. That's the lowest. Remember, Sebastian Hastings is the lowest. Priv, that's 4. Priv, that's 3. Next is 4. Next is 5. And then next is 6. No comment for 6. And then 7. And then 8. Remember, 8 record, the 8th record of Chris Tomlin is the one with the highest grade, 98. And then next, 9. And the next is 10 of 10. So we reached the last student record, and therefore the next button should be disabled. Okay, only the prev button is enabled. So when we press prev, we go back to 9. Both are enabled. We go to 8, both are enabled, and we are at the record with the highest grade. Okay, 6, 5, the lowest record, the record with the lowest grade, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then we could exit this one. Now back to Eclipse. Take note that our text fields here, like this one, the editable property is false because this is not for input but for output. So the same is true for all the other text fields. The editable is false. Okay, so all of this are false. The editable property. And let's take a look now at the source code. So all of these are automatically generated when we added all of those components. So what we're going to look at now is the portion first for the two label images, the medal and the study hard. Okay, remember that? Let's take a look at that. Where is it? Okay. Okay, you see this label. Okay, that's for the medal label. And the image icon is the image medal5.png, okay, from this directory. And after we created that, we set the visibility of that medal label or medal image to false. Okay, that is why when we run our program, you cannot see the medal image. The same is true for the study hard. Okay, this is automatically generated when we add that component into our window, and then we set this to false, the visibility of that image, because it should be displayed only or visible only when we reach that record with the lowest grade. And this one also will be set the visibility to true when we reach the record with the highest grade. Okay, so remember that it is initially false, the visibility of the two images. Now, after all of these components are created, okay, remember what I said a while ago, that we are to load all the student records from the CSV into the RAM using a 2D array. Okay, so this is a user-defined method which is defined on top. Let's go to load here. This is the load all student records. So what we have here is we have here declared a file reader and a buffered reader. So these two instances of file reader and buffered reader, FR and BR, okay, we have them declared on top as a global field. Where is that? Here, this portion, okay? We declared those variables of type file reader for FR and type buffered reader for BR. And then the actual instantiation is done here. Okay, remember, instantiation is when you're using the new operator. Okay, and this is the constructor file reader and the constructor buffered reader. So the parameter to pass to file reader is the directory of our CSV file, which is this one. We have seen that a while ago. And then we have local variables, highest grade and lowest grade. And we initially set that to 0, the highest grade, and lowest grade to 100. Okay. And then we have here a do while loop. Okay. So what is being done here in the do while loop? For each iteration, it actually read. Okay. So it reads one string line from the CSV for each iteration. So one iteration of this do while loop, it reads one line from the CSV. Okay. So using the read line method of buffered reader BR. So we get the first record, the one for Juan Cruz, okay, and that is stored in line. And if it's not null, okay, then this is not executed. So this means that when we reach the last line after the 10th record, that is already null. Okay, so this do while loop, which is the condition of the do while loop is always true, meaning this do while loop is an infinite loop. Okay, but although it is an infinite loop, there is a time when that ends because when you reach the last line after the last record, the line would become null and this would become true, and therefore the infinite loop will be stopped. So as long as it's not the end of the CSV file yet, we read one line or one student record, and then remember our previous lesson on string tokenizer. The while loop here will what? What will it do? It will simply segregate each column, which all the columns are separated by a comma, right? So each column in that line is a token. Okay, and as long as there are tokens or as long as there are columns in that one row line, then this is executed. Okay, so what we do is the first column is saved into studrec. S count is initially, what is S count? The student count is initially 0. Okay, this counts how many student records are there. So it's initially 0. And in here, for the first execution of the while loop, this would be 0, and J is initially 0 also. Okay, J is the index for, this is the column index. Okay, the column index. So when J is equal to 0, that refers to the ID. When J is equal to 1, that refers to the name of the student. Okay, and so this is for student index 0, 0. That will be the ID of the first student. And then if J is equal to 7, what does this mean? Remember, the column index J, when it is equal to 7, it refers to the grade column. Okay, the grade column is index 7. That is when you start with 0. Okay, so if J is equal to 7, meaning you have reached from 0, from ID, you reach the grade, you make then a comparison. Okay, you check if the grade of that, which is this one, the grade of that student is greater highest grade. What is the highest grade? 0. So obviously the first student record is initially the one with the highest grade, and also the one with the um, lowest grade. Okay, because our lowest grade is 100, and so that is obviously less than 100. So initially, the first student record, which is of Juan Cruz, that's the first or the initial highest grade and lowest grade. And then later on, it would change when we find a more higher grade and we find a more lower grade, okay, or a lower grade. And then we increment J, meaning we move to the next column or to the next token in that line, in that student record, okay? And then outside of this, oh no, inside of this, we count or we increment S count, okay? So we move to the next line, okay? So when you increment J, you are moving to the next column in the CSV file, okay? When you increment S count, what does it mean? You are moving to the next row or line in the CSV file. Okay. Now, after you have read all the lines or all the student records from the CSV and store them into the 2D array studrec, which is, by the way, the specs of that is 10 by 10, okay? Meaning 10 student records and each student record has 10 columns or 10 data fields, which are ID, name, course, year level, and so on up to clearance. So when all of that are loaded into the 2D array, what is the next thing to do? We simply check here if S count is greater 0, then the current record, which is initially, current record is initially 0, that is incremented, meaning it becomes 1, okay? So meaning the current record is 1. And we display that current record, which is 1 of 10 records, okay? So we call another method, which is defined here. Okay, so we say student record 1 of 10, right? Remember the output, the execution a while ago. So the record label will say 1 of 10, and then display, okay, using the method setText, display all the data fields into the text fields components, okay? And what are these values? Those you have stored in the 2D array, okay? We put a -1 here because this is an array and the index always starts with 0. Because this is already 1, we increment this one here. So from 0, it becomes 1. So it displays 1 first or out of 10. And then we say 1 minus 1. So that's 0, index 0. And the column 0 up to column 9. Okay. And what's this about? Okay, this is the one for the disabling and the enabling of the prev button and the next button, okay? So we enable the prev button when the current record is greater 1, right? But if it's not greater 1, the prev button is disabled. And in here, if the current record is less than the number of students or the total number of students, what will you do? You enabled the next button. Okay, so if the current record is less than the total, the next button is enabled. If it is false, meaning you reach the last, then it is disabled. The next button is disabled. Okay. Now for the events. Okay, you know already how to add an event to the 3 buttons. For exit, it's the same before, but instead of file writer in our first video, we closed the file reader and the buffered reader, okay, before we exit the application. And whenever there are some errors that occurs, whatever runtime error or exception, we'll just do nothing and just let the application continue to exit, okay, normally. For the next button, what is the event for the next button when the mouse is clicked? Okay, look at this, the if statement. If current record is less than S count, what will we do? We increment current record. Okay, kay next man siya. So when the next button is clicked, we increment the current button and we set this to remember the 2 images, the medal and the study hard for the highest and the lowest grade. We set them to false, meaning they are not visible. But when the current record is equal to the high grade index plus 1, because we start with 0, that's why we add 1. If we are currently at the record with the highest grade, then what we're going to do, we're going to display the label rank is highest and we show the medal label. Okay, we set the visibility of the medal label or image to true. Else, what will we do? If the current record is the one with the lowest grade, then the label would say the rank of this record is lowest, and then we show or display the image to study hard. Okay, we set the visibility to true. If these 2 conditions are not true, then we simply display nothing on the rank label. And then for each record that we view, each current record, we display the details or the data fields or the columns of that student record. For the prev button mouse click event, actually it's the same as the next, but then instead of in the next button we increment current record, in prev button we decrement it because we're moving back to the left, okay, or back to the first record. So we decrement the current record, and just like sa next button, we set the visibility of these 2 images to false, and when we reach the current record with the highest grade, we display the label that it is the record with the highest grade, and then we display the medal image. If that is not true and this is true, or we are currently viewing the record with the lowest grade, we display this on top, that the rank of this record is lowest, and we then display the study hard image. If these 2 conditions are not true, then we just display nothing. And for each current record that you are in, we display all the details or all the data fields or columns of that student record. Okay, so that's all. And Let's try to save this.